Hello. Yeah, so this is the next episode. So I'm still eating the meal. When I said you in the previous episode I was going for dinner, I don't think this is what I meant. Because that was the second meal in the day, and now I'm also after the second meal in the day. So I maybe just confused dinner with that. Breakfast. No. You eat breakfast? Ah, I know, I probably shouldn't care so much. So, yeah, we have here that.
In the cities by the end of the show. These are all pretty liberal resolutions, only slightly left of the center, but we didn't even get any of this. One of them outright just didn't happen, and the other two we have no idea. And there is a reason for everything I've just said.
What are you going to say that uh, white supremacists have taken Fortiche and Riot hostage? I wonder how would they get to France and then made them to make this show so fucking right wing. Right wing, which is
And what is that reason?
it's not even centrist.
Well, it's actually pretty simple once you think about it. See, maybe it's not that Season 2 is so incredibly different from Season 1 when it comes to its handling of political ideas anyway. No, it's because Arcane was never actually invested in leftist ideals in the first place. Season 1 was just a lot better at hiding that, the writers far more adept at guiding us to leftist intentions they never actually had. From the very beginning, Arcane put on a masquerade of leftism, a disguise of sorts, window dressing. Any leftist messaging that this show appeared to endorse was either incidental or only supported in the most shallow of ways. And once you realize this, the centrism of Arcane and the
I'm also eating an orange, so yeah, let's get used to me eating.
show's ultimate trajectory makes complete sense. I first became cognizant of Arcane's leftist farce a few weeks ago, or more like a month ago by now, when this thread by user at SweatViArcane, or Nikki, came across my timeline on Twitter. This is a great thread that I suggest everyone read if you can, because I'm not going to be able to do it justice in this video. So essentially, what Nikki talks about is that Arcane never intended to make a commentary on the police system in general, instead it just carries the aesthetic of a fuck the police theme. For example, the opening scene was only meant to show the enforcers as the people who killed Vi and Jinx's parents, not a systemic tool of oppression Piltover uses against Zahn.
Wow. No, the fact that I knew that from the beginning is just so incredibly. I am a leftist. I came into the show not expecting it to be a leftist commentary. And never in my leftist brain watching of this show, I I have thought that enforcers were used, I don't know, in that way, like, to get leftist messaging.
The Firelights appear to be against Piltover, but they never actually fight any enforcers.
Well, they are shown to fight enforcers in the opening montage or whatever. How was it? Music video of episode 7. That they still hate the enforcers and fight them. So that's kind of wrong. They are just never shown fighting enforcers because there wasn't really an occasion in the show. Actually, there was, but this was like, some part just isn't to eat. And yeah, mm, this was a special circumstances.
Nikki also talks about Vi a lot in this thread, but since I'll be giving my own analysis on Vi, I'll skip over that. But basically, the part of the thread I really want to point out is this tweet right here. The writers wrote the show's political story to reflect its relationships. Piltover's oppression of Zahn is a backdrop, a source of interpersonal tension, not commentary. And I'll be discussing this point a lot when I start analyzing characters, particularly once I start talking about Kate Vi. Nikki read, but since I'll be giving my own analysis on Vi, I'll skip
He wasn't focused. What did she?
over that. But basically, the part of the thread I really want to point out is this tweet right here. The writers wrote the show's political story to reflect its relationships. Piltover's oppression of Zahn is a backdrop, a source of interpersonal tension, not commentary. And
Yeah, no shit. It kind of is. So this is also wrong.
I'll be discussing this point a lot when I start analyzing characters, particularly once I start talking about Kate Vi. Nikki also discusses Kate Vi in this context, so seriously, go check out her thread if you can, it's so good. This thread opened my eyes. It was so obvious. Arcane was never going to end any other way. Arcane was always going to be centrist, and these serious issues that the show drew from were only meant to serve as window dressing for the animation and the interpersonal conflicts. Don't believe me yet? That's fine, because I'm only just getting started. But maybe you don't believe me because I, a random person on the internet, am saying this. That's fine too. You don't have to take my word for it. Why don't we take a look at what Christian Link, Arcane's co-creator, showrunner, and executive producer, has to say about Piltover and Zahn? This
The only season 2 hater that acknowledges that there were major people responsible for writing the script.
right here is Link's pitch for Arcane that he shared on Twitter, though he has since deleted that tweet. I've highlighted the relevant parts for your reading pleasure, but I'll go
Arcane is an animated series that is based on characters in the game of League of Legends. It's the resolute pursuit to craft. We all want to exist. The animated series. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Oh, it's built over the gleaming city full of magical Da Vinci's. It's quick. Technology and steampunkish, steampunkish wonder. In its underground district is all the society of thieves, smugglers, and makeshift swindlers defy its law. Hazard mod my fences has gone broken. Take back control of the city by violent force and risk a civil war. Dangerous evolutionary advantages go their way. Story of morals about corruption among pure and righteousness among the unfortunate. I don't see anything centrist. I don't see anything like something that is not leftist. Actually, no, it isn't really leftist because it doesn't talk about its political commentaries.
ahead and read this whole middle section aloud. So, Mr. Link writes about Arcane. At its center is Piltover, the gleaming city full of Da Vinci-esque technology and steampunk wonder. In its underground district Zahn, a society of thieves, smugglers, and makeshift Svengalis defy its law. Haphazard mutative experiments on humans let the underground grow wild and strong. Word on its streets is clear. Fuck Piltover's laws and moral code. It's time to push things a lot further. The people of Piltover need to decide: take back control of its city's underground by violent force and risk a civil war, or let Zahn's dangerous evolutionary advances go their way. It's a story about the clash of morals and ideology, about corruption among the pure and righteousness among the unfortunate. That is certainly a pitch that exists. Alright, let me get serious. This pitch, this elitist centrist thought, is what we can assume guided the production.
Uh, Analyst centrist thought. What's so centrist about? I mean, this video. Because of this video, I'm starting to question if I'm even leftist anymore. Because if this is according to her centrist, and like I do consider myself on the far left because I am. So She's like implying that leftists don't have brain and that they think the same as the right. Which is like, just 0-1. The good guys zone, bad guys spilt over. The good guys spilt over, bad guys zone. No! These are only mostly Marxist. Now I realize how much my ideologies are nothing correct.
of Arcane. With an attitude like that, there's no reason to be surprised that Arcane ended up this way. This pitch calls Zon an immoral place with no good people, where righteousness is an exception to the norm. It calls Piltover pure, for God's sakes. This is what the show's co-creator had in mind from the beginning. And notice
For the beginning. So yeah, let's just go over some stuff. So basically, in League of Legends, you know why Echo exists? Because they didn't make any good character for Zone. All of this was just literal monsters, um, bad scientists, just your average bad people stuff. And then like I think that the show really wanted to also show that Piltover is not all bad. Just like it later showed that not all enforcers are bad. And this would kind of also be very leftist that there are no 0 and 1 circumstances. There are them versus us. There are just we. That people are different and diverse. This is what for me is associated with leftism in general. So yeah, because um, Marxist would immediately, obviously, Marxist is still a leftist ideology, but they are just. This is like the most people that critique Arcane, because they are just so much because it's meant to be leftist commentary, and Marxists like to see themselves as the only leftists on the fucking planet. So yeah, leftism is not even an ideology. It's just a bunch of ideologies that have vague things in common. So the fact that it doesn't have Marxist commentary doesn't mean that it doesn't have any leftist commentary. This is what I'm trying to say to you through whole this video. This is what mainly just leads why I want to debunk it um, right now, because before watching this I didn't know this is what it is about. That people just confuse Marxism with all of leftism. Yeah, let's just continue.
what is missing from this pitch: the oppression, the commentary, the presence of the police, anything that would be considered leftist in any way, as well as any
Leftist in any way. Oh, right, I already demanded.
explanation for Zon's characteristics that go beyond "they're bad people." The leftism was not part of the initial concept, and instead what was is a rather dehumanizing and insulting depiction of the poor. If this pitch was the
Yeah. So
guiding light of the show, then no wonder Piltover's oppression of Zon was not handled adequately. With a pitch like this, you'd think the enforcers are the good guys. Hell, there is
do you seriously? No,
literally no indication here that Piltover is in the wrong in any way, even though the
I'm not even thinking that. You know what? I'm not gonna say something that I don't know. Actually, I'm gonna say it because, so no, even if Christian wrote it, it still, doesn't mean that it's still a depiction of Zone and Piltover from the games. Okay, this is like the same Okay,
pitch acts like Piltover's first recourse to solving the situation in Zahn is violence. Apparently, that's the right thing to do, according
He never said it is the right thing. He did not say it was the right thing to do. He said it raises questions about its morality. What the hell do you mean? This wouldn't be even centrism if he just said that if he said what she says he said. It would be downright right wing. Centrists would want to keep the status quo. Right wingers would want to destroy all of Zone because they're an impure race.
to this pitch. Now, I fully recognize that this is just the pitch for Arcane, meaning that things could have and likely did change during production.
Wow, no shit!
However, I
So she basically acknowledged, yes, I was wrong. But I'm not going to acknowledge that directly because that would mean that I lost the
still believe that this pitch is relevant for two reasons. First is that Link was perfectly fine putting it out there for everyone to see, derogatory terms and all, which implies to me it must have at least
You previously said that he deleted it, so I don't know what the fuck are you talking about.
some relevance to the final product. Second is that when you watch Arcane now, this general attitude towards Piltover and Zahn is still very much there, even if buried underneath some of the leftist disguise and the most left-leaning parts of the show's
Victor.
centrism. For example,
Violet.
a lot of Zahn's deterioration, particularly where it's at after the 7-year time skip between Act 1 and Act 2 of Season 1, is blamed on Silco,
That one Yordle guy. Not guy, but girl.
not Piltover. I fully believe that the execution of Season 2 probably would not have been quite as insulting and awful had Season 2 had more writers, because even though Season 1 was also centrist, as I'll be discussing shortly, at least it was a good piece of television. Season 2 was other dog shit, and the writers, they
Yeah, obviously. What we have? Oh, you know, I recently watched Arcane. I just don't know where the criticism really is from. If, like, as I said in video where I debunked stupid criticism of this stupid guy, um, like, this is not even a Star Wars type situation where prequels are just, you know, so different that you can maybe understand why people were mad. Season 2 is just season 1, just with different themes, and still the main themes still remains. I mean, no, not the main themes, but they are derived from the themes of the season 1. So yeah, I don't know what she's talking about. Just shut the fuck up, because you are wrong.
had left were not skilled enough to even execute their own centrist vision in a way that was even remotely palatable or reasonable.
I love these insults. Like, yeah, we are both insulting each other right now. I realize that, but we are also arguing. I'm not going to critique that because I'm insulting her because she's so stupid. And like she also insults the writers because she thinks that they are stupid. So I'm not going to, question that, to not be hypocritical or something.
Making the ending far more insulting than it needed to be. For example, Season 2 introduced elements such as gas weaponry and martial law, and treated them with absolutely none of the seriousness and gravity they deserved. In fact, they were not brought in for commentary at all, just interpersonal conflict and
Oh. What does Civic?
tension between the characters. This is a common theme for just about every political element in Arcane, and I'll get into this a lot once I start talking about each of the characters.
Okay, but you don't need, you know, you can do political commentary with characters that are you know, with character. I don't know just how to say it, alright?
Now that I've presented my argument that Arcane was always meant to be centrist, it's time to prove it. Let's revisit Season 1 for a few moments. I want to discuss some of the key moments where the centrist seed was planted in Season 1, and the ways that we as the audience might have dismissed them or interpreted them differently than their centrist truth. Some of these moments and qualities will be the same as the ones I pointed out earlier in the video as reasons why people may have thought this show would be leftist, and this is on purpose. If the show is wearing a leftist masquerade, it makes sense that some of the things we thought were leftist were actually centrist all along. Alright, so, what were those moments that the centrist seed was planted in Season 1? Well, one of the biggest moments, one of the moments that a lot of people caught on to,
Kill me. Marxism, socialism, no, communism is not leftism. Communism is not leftism. This is like, I'm going to skip that moment. I'm going to play it as quickly as possible because the amount of dog shit, of bullshit that this woman is going to say is just.
is Vander's speech to Vi in episode 2. If you may recall, this speech came after Vi found out about Vander's deal with the enforcers, and she was very angry about it since she wants to take the fight to Piltover. And when Vi tells him this, Vander says something cryptic about having heard this talk before, and then we cut to the full conversation between Vi and Vander after Vander brings her to the bridge, the same bridge where Vi and Powder found their dead parents. I'll let y'all listen to what Vander has to say here.
I was angry, just like you. I led us across this bridge, thinking things could change. If I hadn't, your parents would still be alive. I know you want to hurt the Topsides for what they've done to us, but who are you willing to lose? Milo? Slayer? Powder? Nobody wins in war, Vi.
This is a centrist anti-revolutionary sentiment.
Girl, shut the fuck up because you don't know what the fuck are you talking about. I'm laughing. This is like when I watch the far right, you know, I'm laughing because these people are just so stupid. Not all leftists want revolution. Debunked.
Notice the way Vander presents Vi's desire to fight Piltover as one that comes out of hate, not love for her sister or community, despite
Well, it comes from hate. It actually does.
the fact that she just said it came from that motive right before this. This makes Vi's wish to fight seem immature and short-sighted. Vander brings up the potential consequences of fighting against Piltover, but this ignores the fact that people in Zon are already dying from inaction against Piltover.
Later they die from inaction against Piltover and from Silkov. Like, you know, they are dying because of themselves also. Oh shit,
Angry in episode 1. Vi would have died in Stillwater if it weren't for the plot. We know that Zon is an environmentally unhealthy place with little in the ways of medical care. People are dying. The show tries not to show us this by having the only time we see Piltover actively killing Zonites be after they have apparently already initiated a violent confrontation.
because that's how this worked.
But it doesn't take a genius to put 2 and 2 together.
So wait, so when they showed a good ending between, that the conflict has been resolved, you just couldn't assume that enforcers don't persecute Zone because it just isn't implied. But when it isn't even implied, you just assume that people are dying in Stillwater. What is wrong with you? I'm trying to be very consistent with my views. This is why I said that I won't be hypocritical and that I won't insult her for insulting someone who she thinks is stupid. Because we are still on the internet.
Piltover's oppression kills, just like oppression kills in the real world in so many ways that go beyond a direct act of murder. Like I said earlier, many people took Vander's character as a cautionary tale, as the result of constant
Many people are stupid then.
oppression breaking a person until they've internalized it and become a proponent of the oppression they used to struggle against. Season 2 proves without a doubt that this was not the intended interpretation. No, we were supposed to take Vander at face value. He is older and wiser and
I have a leftist brain. I have an inherently socialist brain. Always when there is something to eat, I share it with my brother. I know that it sounds very silly, but like, this is very socialist. What can I say here?
I is younger and mistaken. And what does
My dad is also quite leftist, so.
Vander's speech to Vi do in the end? Vi decides to sacrifice herself by trying to turn herself into
And he basically says the same thing as Vander.
the enforcers to protect her siblings. Vander's speech snuffs out her revolutionary spark and makes her decide to act by the enforcers' rules. And this ain't a knock on Vi, that's my girl. But it's true. Vander's speech makes Vi stop thinking that things can be better, so she does the only other thing she can think to do to protect her family, no longer believing that taking the fight to Piltover is the best way.
Because it's not! Because Zone would lose and be persecuted even worse. Worse. You know that, I know that, Vander knows that, Vi knows that. Marcus knows that, Grayson knows that, the council knows that, everyone knows that. Except for you, apparently. I've left these orange snatches from yesterday here, um, because I'm just too lazy to, I'm very lazy. Um, they are so hard, bro.
To me, this loss of radical hope is devastating, but to the show, this is Vi embracing realism, is her making the right decision, sad only in that Vi is self-sacrificing to a fault. Another quality of Season 1 that in hindsight makes the centrist direction of the show obvious is in what things it chooses not to give commentary on. For example, there is never, not for one moment, a critique of capitalism.
Actually, that may be right, now that I think about it.
And that is because Arcane goes out of its way to not show Piltover's exploitation of Zahn. For
How did Piltover exploit Zone? Like, exactly? Like, yes, they were kind of racist. I don't know how to say it. Discriminating towards them, but like, this is the only discriminating thing that they did. They weren't exactly making them to mine or something. The Zononites did it, so.
one thing, we're never shown a Piltovian that is directly invested in Zahn's exploitation. We get moments where this can be implied,
Where this can be implied. This is not even implied, but can be implied. What are you even?
such as many of the counselors' outraged reactions at the idea of Zahnite independence.
They were outraged because they didn't want to lose territory. Losing like half of your population, even if this population doesn't really live by your rules. And more importantly, giving up Hex Gates. Giving up. He wanted to free trade to the Hex Gates. Free trade in general. This would probably cripple Piltover. And also, this is why they were so mad. And also because they saw Zone as just their territory. This is like the territory doesn't need to be valuable to people fighting for it. To fight for it, sorry. To oppose its giving away, unless there is some territory to trade. There was no trade, and it was basically Piltover capitulating to Zone.
But there is never a moment where we even see how these wealthy people have gotten their money.
Also, isn't the like a critique of capitalism with how Silco takes over the lanes? And how he floods them with shimmer because it's technically operating on capitalism, and how like the guy with glasses was screwed by society. I know this is more of a drag, but this is also kind of a critique of capitalism. Also, like the entire league um, lore between Piltover and Zon is like kind of also a critique of capitalism. Just think about it, all right? Um, they were Piltover was trading at first, and like they became insanely wealthy, and then they started, and then Zone became incredibly poor. Stuff like that. Like the critique of capitalism is like ingrained in Arcane's DNA. It's not like even Star Wars type critique of capitalism. It's just like it's not one of its themes, but it's still the.
And remember what I said earlier about how Arcane changed the relative locations of Zon and Piltover to being across the river from each other instead of Zon being literally under Piltover like it is in League of Legends? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. In League of Legends, Zon as a city came first, but in the construction of the Sun Gates, huge access ways vital for mercantile business, many parts of Zon sunk, and afterwards Piltover was established by the merchant families who got wealthy from the construction of the Sun Gates. Now, because League of Legends is League of Legends, Piltover's exploitation of Zon is also danced around, but you can still pick up on it, even if in many ways it's not even as obvious as how Arcane presents it, which is ironic since Arcane tries to say that Piltover doesn't exploit Zon. But for example, in the lore for the champion Renata Glass, who's a Chem Baron, her parents were killed by Piltover nobles because their research into medicine that could prolong life was a threat to them. I honestly find it funny that Arcane and League of Legends tries to not show Piltover materially exploiting Zon, since given that Piltover is a capitalist society and the Undercity is the underclass, it is natural to assume that Piltover must be exploiting Zon, given its destitute state compared to Piltover's wealth.
No, because the undercity is dangerous. This is like why nobody invests in Africa, because Africa is dangerous, and like there is always a risk of some civil war or gang war or anything really to just kill you up there. So nobody just invests in Africa. This is just normal capitalist stuff.
Like, that's one of the main consequences of capitalism. The idea that capitalism can be reformed to not do this is a centrist position, not to mention wrong. And yes, I fully understand that a show can only tackle so many messages at one time, but when you base the entirety of your political commentary, or, adopting of political tension aesthetic, on a class conflict, you'd think you'd at least try to discuss the economic system that is facilitating that conflict. One small way that the centrist seed was planted in season 1 was the sidelining of Echo as a character. Other than Savika, although her lack of exploration was, in hindsight, also a sign, Echo is the show's most leftist character, just like I said earlier. And while his inclusion seemed to be an indication of Arcane's leftism, the fact that he appeared as little as he did also serves as a sign to the show's centrism. There was no intention to actually explore Echo's politics, to see him as a viable actor in the Zon and Piltover conflict. Echo is also only ever shown fighting fellow Zonites, other than when he was shot by Marcus, who the show had already long written off as a horrible person who doesn't necessarily reflect Piltover or even the police force.
Because I thought that we as leftists just grew up and stopped seeing the world like the right those with them being all bad, us being all good. But if somebody on the left like agrees with that woman, then I know that probably many people that agree with her are just I don't want to say stupid, just misled because in YouTube believe this is just yet another critique of Arcane. So if somebody sees it and he already doesn't like season 2, then he will believe her. So yeah, but like it doesn't. Is it? We can't see people as collectives. We need to see them as individuals. Yeah, and this is, I think, very right wing and very Marxist. So
But anyway, despite Echo stating his conflict against Piltover, we never actually see it. This is something the show does with more than one character, like Vi, who is only ever shown fighting Zonites as well. These are not coincidences. This is intentionally not allowing Piltover and Zon to come into direct conflict with one another. There are even more ways in which the centrist seed was planted, but I'm saving these for the next section of the video where I do some character analysis. But just so you know, these things are Vi never exhibiting any prison or cop-related trauma throughout the entirety of Season 1, Caitlyn's arc, and then the
Oh, please.
existence and development of Kate Vi as a ship. As you might know, one of the biggest complaints about Arcane Season 2 is that many of the characters were done pretty badly, whether that be they got poor treatment, poor writing, poor appearances, or all three. I think that there's a few different reasons for why Season 2 did the character so badly, and one of those is what I'd personally call bad or at least ineffective and inconsistent writing. Another reason is that the show stopped being character-driven and started trying to get its plot from point A to point B, no matter
Yeah, I cannot think of any example, so. Uh,
if the decisions that required characters to make made little sense or not. And I believe that this too is a consequence of the politics that drive the show. The decisions the characters make, as well as the options that are even presented to them, are all steeped in the centrist politics. And, in theory, that is fine, if the show had been strictly centrist from the get-go. But since these characters were created with the aesthetics of leftist ideas, for some of the characters anyway, their character foundations conflict with the story the narrative wants to tell. And so that's what this section of the video is going to be discussing. I'm going to go through every main character of Arcane, as well as some of the side and supporting ones, and discuss how each of their characters was failed because of Arcane's commitment to centrism.
let's see.
I'll be analyzing their arcs and what they reveal about the show's politics. And I'll start with the character that
Okay, that is for the next episode. Uh, yeah, I don't want to make them too long. I will probably just film another back to back, so yeah.